WCTV, connecting our community.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Being 7:05, we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wilmington Board of Selectmen meeting of December 13th, 2020. I'll call the meeting to order. All members are present. Clearly, our chairman, Ms. Maselli, is joining us remote tonight, so in accordance with the open meeting law and the past practice of our board, I will serve as the acting chair, as previous past chair this evening. Lil, can you hear me okay? Okay, good evening to you. Because Selectman Maselli is joining us remote tonight, all of our votes will be done by roll call, and for consistency purposes, I'll call the votes in the same order, starting to my left, finishing to my right, and the chair will be last. Having said all that, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, it's a special night for us tonight. I want to welcome you all here tonight, and those who are watching at home. This is our last meeting before Christmas, so I want to start by wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. I also want to thank members of the board and the manager who are wearing an article of blue here in support of Sean and his service in law enforcement. We will start with the transmitting of Treasury warrants 22, 22A, 23, 23A, 24, and 24A. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion's been made by Mr. Kyra, seconded by Selectman O'Connell. We'll call for the roll. Ms. O'Connell.
Selectman O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Kyra, yes.
And Greg Bendel, yes. So it is unanimous vote. Thank you. Item number 3, the approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes from November 29th, 2021.
I'd like
So
to make
move.
a motion to table those minutes. They weren't in the packet for the January 10th meeting.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second, discussion.
Discussion? Ms. O'Connell.
Just want to leave it out there if anyone had any discussion points.
Yeah, I didn't have it in the packet, so I heard that they were sent via email over the weekend. I didn't have an opportunity to look at them.
Sure.
The board can certainly go ahead and vote. I'd abstain, but I think we should table until the 10th.
I think it's a reasonable request. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the roll on the table, the motion to table. Ms. O'Connell.
Judy O'Connell votes yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Kyra, yes.
And Greg Bendel votes yes. It's unanimous. Those minutes will be tabled to our next meeting in January. Okay, thank you. Which brings us to our appointments. And our first appointment on the agenda is the Board of Selectmen discussion regarding the proclamation of Sean Collier Day. And so I want to start by welcoming some of our distinguished guests that are here this evening. We are very fortunate to have Sean's mom, Kelly, and his stepfather, Joe. Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. We also have a number of other guests with us this evening that I'd like to recognize momentarily, and I appreciate all the members of law enforcement who are clearly a great showing here this evening. A few weeks back, we had the opportunity to reach out to Sean's family to see if we could, as a town, do something else to celebrate Sean's life. For those of you who don't know, Sean grew up in Wilmington here, and we're very proud of that. And so when we reached out, the family was very gracious in agreeing to allow us to do something. I want to thank Chair Maselli for agreeing to have this on the agenda a number of weeks back. So Lil, thank you so much for allowing us to take this up. And what I'd like to do here is read a bit of Sean's life. And as we celebrate him tonight, I'd like to read into the record a little bit of celebration of his life, if I may. Sean graduated from Wilmington High School in 2004. And I note that our superintendent of schools, Dr. Brand, is here representing the schools, as well as a number of school committee members, including the chair, Jen Bryson. I believe I saw MJ Burns in attendance as well. Also with us is our principal at the high school, Linda Peters. So I thank you all very much for being here on behalf of Wilmington Public Schools. We all know what a valued member of your community Sean was and still is. Sean went on to receive a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with honors from Salem State College in 2009. Sean was a member of the Somerville Auxiliary Police Department from 2006 to 2009, where he volunteered hundreds of hours to service. He became the youngest member to attain the rank of sergeant. Sean was also an intern at the Somerville Police Department, becoming the records clerk in the late afternoon and the evening shift. He was sponsored by the Somerville Police Department to attend the MBTA Transit Police Academy, which he did on his own time while still working an evening shift in the Records Bureau and assisting with the technology officer. Sean finished at the top of his class academically, and he had the highest grade point average of any officer who graduated from the MBTA Academy. Sean became a member of the MIT Police Department in 2012, and he made it his mission and goal to gain the trust and confidence of the students. At MIT, outside his regular duties, Sean took part in the MIT Outing Club and the Outdoor Adventure Group, where he learned the basics of mountaineering. By getting to know his students, by talking to them, by sharing memories and hiking with them, he got to know his community. In June of 2013, Sean would have been appointed a police officer to the city of Somerville, achieving a lifelong goal. And on August 22nd of 2013, Sean reached his goal of being appointed a Somerville police officer, where he was honored by the police department in Somerville with badge number 310, which was assigned to him and then retired permanently in his honor. In addition to that, Sean also had a profound impact on his hometown. So much so that in 2015, our community dedicated a playground on the shores of Silver Lake in his name, which is very fitting, given the fact that Sean dedicated his life to protecting others and creating a safe place, and this playground serves as a safe place for children to grow up and play. Later in 2017, the town planted a tree in Sean's honor at Rotary Park across from our police station, where that tree stands still tall and brave, just like Sean did for so many years. Also, Sean has been honored by our school system in the town with a monument in his name outside the courtyard at our new high school, where students and future generations will remember his service and sacrifice to others. I also want to recognize some of the other folks that are here with us tonight before I go to the board for some commentary and eventually the vote. We are very fortunate to have with us, and I'd like to open the floor to him at this time, is the MIT Police Chief and longtime Wilmington resident, Mr. John DeFava. Chief, please.
Good evening, everyone. I am the chief of the MIT Police Department, and I was a longtime resident of the town of Wilmington. 4 years ago, circumstances changed in my life, and I found myself moving back to my roots in the Rosendale part of the city of Boston, and I've been there ever since. And I'll tell you, it was not an easy decision to reach, because I liked Wilmington. I liked the town, and I liked everything about the town. I liked what it stood for, and I liked the people, and I liked the friends that I made. And although I left the town, I didn't leave my memories behind. And I will tell you that the foremost of those memories is a sense of community that Wilmington has that I can assure you does not exist in the city of Boston. So when I received the call from Greg, who, by the way, grew up around the corner from me, and I can remember him when he was on the skateboard, and he told me what was planned for tonight, I was extremely pleased, but far from surprised, because this is Wilmington at its best. So we have an obligation to remember those that have made that sacrifice. And right now, it's not a good time to be a police officer, but I will tell you that all of these people in this room that have that uniform on are doing the right thing every day. And Sean was the best of that group. So on behalf of the MIT Police, on behalf of MIT, on behalf of myself, thank you for what you're doing here tonight.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. And we also want to welcome our friends from the Somerville Police Department. We have former Chief Mike Cabral and other members of the Somerville Police Department, we thank you very much, gentlemen, for making the trip up and being here. We know how much Sean was valued in your community as well, and it says a lot about you folks by making the trip up here tonight. So thank you so much. We also have clearly an extraordinary outpouring of support from Sean's hometown police department here in Wilmington. Can't tell you, gentlemen, how impressed I am to see all the officers here in duty, in uniform, some on duty, some not on duty tonight. And it's a testament to the type of police department we have here in Wilmington that embodies all the things that Sean did. Service to others with extraordinary compassion. And Sean, I know, took his job very seriously as to these gentlemen. And they're led by Chief Joe Desmond. And I appreciate you being here, Chief. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to steal the Chief's thunder, but obviously his comments stand very true with us. This community does a wonderful job of always remembering with Veterans Memorial Day, and this is just part of that. What impresses me the most is here we are 8 years later, still standing here and showing that we remember and that our resolve is to always remember and to dedicate Sean's life, which is important. I know what this is about. It's not about what happened, it's about his life. And that's why we all here very proud to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And we appreciate what the men and women of the Wilmington Police Department do every day. So thank you all for being here. We're also fortunate enough to be here joined by members of our state delegation. We have Senator Bruce Tarr and Representative Dave Robinson. I'd like to welcome them forward if they'd like to say a few words. Senator Tarr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the members of the board and to our town administrator. It is an honor to be with you here tonight, and I'm deeply appreciative, Mr. Chairman, that you reached out to us to request that we be with you tonight. And I know both Representative Robertson and I are extremely pleased to be here. I also want to say that it is an honor to be in the company of the men and women of law enforcement and the police departments that are here with us tonight, and to say how much we appreciate them, not only on this night, but every single day, for what they do on our behalf, and the example they set, and the public service they provide, for which we should always, always be appreciative. And that's why it's also an honor to be here to recognize with you Sean Collier, a young man who found what he loved to do in life. And what he loved to do in life was protecting all of us. And he did it with such passion and enthusiasm and kindness and caring and compassion that his life story is indeed an example for all of us to follow, and particularly for all of us to honor. And so to be able to be here tonight to recognize that example, so that on this very special day every year in Wilmington, we'll pause and take a moment to remember a young man who made part of each and every one of his days serving us. A young man who so nobly and so courageously represented that symbol that is faced by all of our men and women in law enforcement, of leaving home, going out into the world, and putting themselves in harm's way, sometimes not knowing the threat, but always knowing of their commitment to face that threat, to confront that threat, and unfortunately, to make sacrifice that can be the ultimate sacrifice. Mr. Chairman, when you called, and I was thinking about coming here tonight, I was thinking back to that time during the era of the marathon bombings. And I was thinking about the terror that gripped our communities as murderers stepped forward and tried to not only assault the people that were watching the marathon, but to assault the spirit of the people of Boston and the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And in that time, when we didn't know what was going to happen next, we weren't sure what the next attack would be. We weren't sure where the assailants were going to be. Sean Collier was on duty, standing tall, ready to face the threat. That setting the example. So I want to congratulate the board, the administrator for taking this action tonight to remind us, again, by setting this day every year, to remember Sean's life and how he approached his life. Because again, is an example for all of us. And so I do have a citation from myself and my colleagues in the Senate. Representative Robertson and I also, in addition, Representative Robertson has a citation from the House, and we have a citation from the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor. So I'd like to read this, and then Representative Robertson read the House citation, and then with your indulgence, present these to Sean's mother and stepfather. And so this reads from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the State Senate, an official citation. It reads, be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to the Collier family in recognition of the establishment of Sean Collier Day in the town of Wilmington. And be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success, that this citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate and attested to and a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate. And these are signed by Karen Spilka, the President of the Senate, attested to by our Clerk, Michael Hurley, and I am proud to offer the citation on December 13th, of 2021, on an evening when this board and this town stands tall in the tradition of a strong community and recognizes one of its own who did set that example and continues to be that bright light by virtue of that example for all of us to follow. Representative?
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Good evening, Board. Colleague family. When I was younger, the days after September 11th, I remember my teachers saying, look for the helpers. I think he stole it from Mr. Rogers, if I remember. But as a young man at the time, it was pretty profound in a time that was unknown and scary in the world. It certainly helped. And that was the closest, I think, ever. And the tragedy happened until the marathon bombing. And I will not mention the names of those who perpetrated it. It's better left than them to be forgotten and rotten. But from the town of Wilmington, Rose, one of those folks that helped, that ran into the fire, and rose to the occasion, and I think represents the spirit of this town probably better than anyone here. And I just want to say it's a wonderful shining example and not unexpected at Wilmington, Somerville, MIT. Sean's colleagues in uniform all step forward because they too know the sacrifice and risk every day. So I as well brought recognition this from the House of Representatives. In recognition of this, and I believe the board should vote in favor tonight. I believe the town of Wilmington would be proud to remember, celebrate the spirit. Be it hereby known to all, the House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to the Collier family on the establishment of the Sean Collier Day in the town of Wilmington, in memoriam of one of our finest residents and peace officers to ever serve this community in the Commonwealth during one of our darkest hours and most time in need of heroes. He became one. It is presented this 13th day of December, signed by the Speaker of the House, Mr. Mariano, and myself. Senator Tarr and I also brought one from Governor Baker, conferring upon you this governor's citation in recognition of the establishment in memory of Sean Collier Day in the town of Wilmington. So our condolences, but thank you for sharing Sean not just with the town, but with the state.
Thank you, gentlemen. We very much appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. As we continue to honor and celebrate Sean's life, I'd like to turn to my colleagues now who may want to offer some commentary before we take up the vote. I'll start to my left, if it's okay, Selectman O'Connell.
Good evening. Thank you to you, Chairman Bendel, Acting Chair Bendel, for bringing this forward to us as a board. I'd like to also thank everyone that's here in attendance. Certainly, you've done a great job in listing who is here. I see all of the men and women that are here, whether you're in law enforcement, you're an elected official, a member of our school department, a resident, a fellow police officer. The list goes on, and most specifically to Chief DeFaver and to Sean's parents. Thank you very much for being here. I am a lifelong resident of Wilmington, and I was born and raised and attended Wilmington Public Schools, and had the good fortune of having some of the same teachers, and the principal that Sean had was my math teacher, who's here tonight. And I also had the good fortune of living in the same neighborhood as Chief DeFaver. And I remember seeing this very strong man run by my house every single day. And I always wondered what he did. And I found out he was a police officer. And at the time, he was on Mass State Police. And I always admired him because he always kept himself in shape. He always said hi to everybody. And I said, geez, he's just a super nice guy. And then I read about him leaving the state police with a decorated record and going on to MIT. And I would see him around town. And then the first time I had seen him in years, up close and personal, was at Sean's memorial. And I remember where I was that day when the events had happened. I happened to be in Boston that night. I remember being out in an establishment and seeing it over the news, and stopping and praying for Sean and praying for the other officers. And I was on the Board of Selectmen at that time. And I remember being part of the vigil that took place at the Common. And I remember being lined up on the street, receiving Sean home through Wilmington. And I remember the days that followed, and then also was a member of the board when you had come in for the playground, and was able to speak to you then, and now have the opportunity to speak to you now. I remember saying to myself that the one thing that I had wished is that I knew Sean personally, and that I never had the good fortune of actually meeting him personally, but I felt that I knew him. I felt that the world got to know him better through all of the eloquent stories that people had shared, that your sons had shared during the eulogy at his funeral. And I remember being particularly struck by Chief DeFaver and his commentary, because I knew him personally. And he had said that his whole life he had grown up believing in superheroes, and that he was a big fan of the Lone Ranger, and that when life took him into adulthood and through his policing and life in general, that he wasn't sure that heroes really existed until he met Sean. And he said, if a hero were to live among us, it would be Sean, and that he did it right, and that every time he put the uniform on, that he did it right. And I believe that's a credit to him, and I believe it's a credit to the two of you as his parents and his extended loving family and friends. And I know that there's nothing that I can say or do that can take this unspeakable tragedy away from you and your family. But I hope tonight is a reminder, days and years later, that we as a community still mourn with you, and we still want to celebrate and honor Sean's memory to the extent that you've allowed us to do so. We appreciate that, and that this is a loving community that sees you and sees the merits of what Sean has done throughout his very short life, and that as long as we're able to, as organized bodies and entities in town, that would like to do whatever we can to continue his legacy today, tomorrow, and in the years to come. And so we hope that you see tonight as a small token of our appreciation for his gift of life, and for his contributions to the town of Wilmington, and for his contributions to the police community, and his contributions to the state of Massachusetts and to the world. And that he does matter. He always has mattered. He will continue to matter moving forward, and his contributions have been significant. And I just want to extend my heartfelt thanks for you for being here tonight, and I will be all too delighted and honored to approve this proclamation when it's brought forward to the board this evening. So once again, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Any other commentary? Mr. DePalma?
I had met Sean on a couple of occasions, considering that you lived in my neighborhood at the time. And I remember one instance, I had just come home from Framingham, and I had a brand-new cruiser with me, an unmarked cruiser. And he was walking down the street, and he saw it, and he came in and we started talking. At a young age, I can tell there was a cop in making. Every police officer that wears that uniform knows that something may happen. We have to pray for them. The attacks that the police departments are taking today, are unjust. It's because of men and women like Sean that we can stand here today and smile and be proud. Sean knew what he was getting into, but Sean also knew that he had a love, an affection for law enforcement. We have to pray for people like that, and we have to support them and their families. Never forget Sean or any other brave men and women in law enforcement that have passed. I am proud to have said I had known Sean, and I am being more proud to support this proclamation today. Thank you to you both.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me first thank all of you for being here tonight, and thank all the brave men and women who wear the badge and protect the citizens of Wilmington and of the Commonwealth. I did not know Sean. Unfortunately, I didn't have the pleasure that some others did, but his life was amazing. It was a life well lived, but all too short. And I know Chief John Father for way back, for quite some time, and I can tell you that his integrity in bringing in Sean, you could not have, brings in the best, and Sean was the best. And it just, it's a sad day at what happened on September 11th, but we want to keep that memory alive forever, and this will help do that. But we'll never forget. We can't forget. I am proud to support this citation today, and I want to thank Kelly and Joe for giving us Sean for the short years that he had, but memorable. And we'll always remember him, and God bless his soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Ms. Maselli?
Thank you. I hope you all hear me okay. First and foremost, I want to apologize for being a person as I'm coming from an owner. I'm really disappointed because I was really looking forward to this. And I want to thank Selectman Bender for doing this. This is the word and putting it all together. Welcome to the Collier family. Everybody who's been a support this evening. This was from another generation come, the monument for trees, they never really a very big honor. I never got to meet Sean, I didn't have the pleasure. So somebody really felt strong that he is wonderful, and everything he's doing. And I can knew that he didn't get very more of his goodness for the world, but it was his short time for people to move and we are very proud of him. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And finally, I too didn't have the pleasure of knowing Sean, although he was my brother's age, a few years younger. It's because of people like Sean that I was able to grow up in such a wonderful community, like Chief DeFava mentioned. And I think it's so important that my children and future generations with them always will be reminded of his life and what a great life it was lived, a life of service, sacrifice, and a willingness to protect others. And so I think it's so important, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we take action like we are about to tonight to make sure that Sean's life will be celebrated on January 3rd, which was his birthday, every day going forward, every year rather, going forward here in the town of Wilmington. So if there's, without objection, I'd like to take up agenda item number 6 out of order.
So moved.
Without objection, we will January 3rd as Sean Collier Day in the town of Wilmington. Before I call for the vote, I'd just like to read the proclamation into the record. Whereas Sean Allen Collier was born on Friday, January 3rd, 1986, to the beloved son of Allen Collier and Kelly Kelleher and Joseph Rogers. And whereas Sean Allen Collier was the beloved brother of Nicole, Jennifer, Andrew, Robert Rogers, Jennifer Rogers, and the beloved grandson of William and Ella Kelleher. And whereas Sean Allen Collier demonstrated a desire to become a police officer at a young age and worked towards his goal of graduating from Wilmington High School in 2004, Salem State University, and served as an auxiliary police officer for the Somerville Police Department from 2006 to 2009, and was appointed to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Police Department on January 9, 2012. And whereas Sean Allen Collier demonstrated his moral compass and fought for what was right, and whereas Sean Allen Collier was a kind, charitable, and showed empathy for all, whether it was a family member, friend, homeless individual, random stranger, or even an animal. And whereas Sean Allen Collier was well-respected by his colleagues and superiors, and whereas Sean Allen Collier is described by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology students and alumni as dedicated, cheerful, personable, charming, and kind. And whereas Sean Allen Collier inherently cared for and protected the Massachusetts Institute of Technology campus and community, and in so doing so lost his life in the line of duty on Thursday, April 18, 2013. And whereas the citizens of the town of Wilmington celebrate the life of Sean Allen Collier. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen do hereby proclaim January 3rd as Sean Allen Collier Day going forward in the town of Wilmington. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote by roll call. Ms. O'Connell?
Selectman Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Terry Carey, yes.
And Greg Bendel, yes. It is unanimous. Yeah, no, give it a- Thank you, Mitch. And finally, we have a gift for you, Kelly and Joe, and we'd like to present this to you. Before I do, did I miss anyone? I apologize if I missed anybody who would like to offer anything. I really appreciate everyone being here tonight. And at this time, it's my pleasure if I may come forward and present this to you.
I'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen and Town Administration for this great honor for Sean. We really appreciate the fact that you have recognized him and will be celebrating his birthday every year. And I'd also like to thank all the police officers in the room. These guys run towards danger so that we can stay safe. So, I mean, they're out there protecting the people of the Commonwealth, and they're all heroes too. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll call for a very short recess. I know some people have to move on, and we'll be right back in just 1 minute. Thank you so much. Figure just let the room clear out. Shelley, thank you so much for your patience this evening.
Sure thing, no problem. Good evening, everyone. Just updating on the status of where we are with COVID right now. Currently, have 272 active positives in town, and 600 people in quarantine. We have, out of those 272, 134 are breakthrough cases, which means that the people have been fully vaccinated, so we're still getting COVID. They get mild cases of COVID, which is what the vaccination is meant for. I have 4 people in the hospital right now, and they are unvaccinated. I have a breakdown of where we're at with breakthrough cases in different age groups. The highest number right now of COVID cases in town is the 41 to 60-year-old age group. And the second highest would be the infant to 12 years of age. So I see those as kind of coming together as families that are all getting COVID. We have on our 60 to 75-year-old age group, we have 42 people that had COVID. And I don't have anyone that's over the age of 75 right now that is positive for COVID. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. We've had an increase significantly every week in COVID cases. I said it the other night, I'm drowning in COVID again. But it's just with the new variants that are coming through, we really just need to push the message that it's good for people to get vaccinated and get their booster shots. You know, many people right now, they have declining antibodies because they got vaccinated so long ago. So with this new variant that's creeping in, Omicron, you know, the weather is turning colder, people are moving indoors, holidays are coming, lots of gatherings. This is the time to get vaccinated and get your booster if you need it. It's tough out there to get those because there's just such a high demand right now. People are waiting, you know, a few weeks to get an appointment to get vaccinated or get their booster shot. I had a really successful clinic the other night, last week. I don't have any more booster shot vaccines coming. I'm sort of like on a little bit of a waiting list. I hope to get them in the next couple weeks. But if you can just keep looking around for them, doctor's offices, CVS, pharmacies, or other clinics in other towns, if you see that they're having them, you can go there. So that's where we're at with vaccinations, booster shots. Really want to push that message out to people to really think about getting vaccinated and getting the booster shot. You really end up with a mild COVID illness if you do get COVID. It's also important to know that if you are vaccinated and you come in contact with someone that has COVID, you don't have to quarantine. Those are the current guidelines right now for vaccinated individuals. It's important to remember that. A lot of people are like, I don't understand why, you know, if my husband has it, why can I just keep going to work and doing things? Well, it's because you're fully vaccinated, and that's what the guidelines are. So we just ask that you monitor yourself for symptoms and should be wearing a mask if you're around people you're not sure. See, in the younger kids, we have really mild illness, and seeing a lot of cases creep up from youth sports and different organizations like clubs and dance and cheerleading, basketball, hockey. But they're all popping up, kids are popping up positive, and it's difficult to quarantine all of them. There are a lot of these places, these organizations are high-risk sports, where there's heavy breathing, and they're running around, there's close contact. So we have to take all that into consideration when we have unvaccinated kids. So I just hope that I can get the message out for people to really think about getting, again, I keep saying, getting vaccinated and don't see the numbers declining. I see that they're gonna just keep going up and up and up. We're at a little bit over a 7% positivity rate right now for Wilmington. That's pretty high. And I bet you this week it goes up. Today I had to run into Lawrence Community Health Center for something, and the testing site, the drive-up testing site in Lawrence, I couldn't believe how long the line was. It must have been 2 miles long. It stretched all the way out onto Canal Street, almost down towards 495, and it's just that many people are out there getting tested for whatever reason, if they feel sick, or if they are traveling, or if they're getting together for a family event and just want to be safe and be sure that they don't have COVID, which is a good thing. We like to promote that. I'm hearing that it's tough for people to get a test. You just gotta really sit down at your computer and try to find testing sites in and around town. A lot of the urgent cares can test you, your own doctor, you can hopefully get a test there. Let's try CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, the Project Beacon sites, which is the drive-through. I know I said the line was so long in Lawrence, but you need to get tested. And if you're quarantining or isolating, you might as well just sit in your car and wait and get tested. So just trying to remind people that COVID really is still here. It's not going away anytime soon, especially with this new variant coming in. We don't have any cases of the variant in Wilmington. We just see that we think we have 1 or 2 in Massachusetts right now, but it's inevitable that it's going to come, just like the Delta variant, the prevalent strain. I think this probably will too. I have using some of the data, it has shown that if you're vaccinated and you get Omicron variant, it's a mild illness, which is nice, but it's still very contagious. So people just have to remember to practice, safe, open spaces around you. Wear a mask when you're outside, going into places, not outside, but going out into inside places. Try to stay clear, 6 feet away from people, and especially if you're sick, can't be away enough. Don't go to work, and don't go out. Even if you have a cold, it's just good healthy practices not to go out, not to go to work, if you're not feeling well. Because it could be COVID, and I don't want you to be a super spreader. I don't know if anyone has any questions. It's weird, I can't see anyone.
Shelley, thank you very much for that update. I wish we had the night off for you and you didn't have to come and give us this news, but we appreciate the update. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Mrs. Newhouse.
Right now.
Ms. O'Connor.
I just want to take an opportunity publicly to say to you, Shelley, thank you very much for everything that you're doing. This is Selectman O'Connell. I don't know if you can see me now, but I just want to say that I know that you and your department have been working hours and hours and hours on this, fielding phone calls this time around and then when it first started. And I can say that I'm in your department a lot for other reasons, and you and your team have never let it show to the public whatever stress or any fatigue that you might have through this whole process, and I believe that should be stated. You guys have all gone above and beyond. I was affected with COVID when I called in. You all are all too willing to help me. This was obviously quite some time ago, so I'm not within that window right now being here tonight. And then also too, I attended the booster clinic that you did at St. Dorothy's, and I just wanted to commend you on that. I was in and out. I was able to get in and out with an appointment like many other people, and everything was service with a smile. People were doing all that they could to help people get in and out, and it was very efficient. Having sat there in the waiting period, I was able to see the operation run, and people were coming in and out so quickly and getting that business done. So regardless of what people's opinions are on things, we all have to kind of look out for each other and take care of each other. And I just want to also comment for what it's worth. I'm not advocating for a particular pharmacy, but I happen to be in CVS, and they have plenty available for even the at-home tests that are at $9.99, so it's a nominal cost if you can't get an appointment and you want to be able to check yourself so that you're at least not spreading it while you're trying to get an appointment to be officially on record. that's an option. I also know my family, because it's quite large, has had success even scheduling an appointment at Suffolk Downs when every other place is booked. So for whatever those few little tidbits are to help people look at another avenue or another venue to try and get in, I've noticed just a huge influx of cases where everyone I'm talking to, someone immediately around them is affected in a way that I haven't seen in a while. So I'm seeing it and hearing it around, so I'm sure other people are too. But the moral of the story is I just wanted to say thank you to you and your team for everything that you're doing and everything that you'll continue to do, because I think we're just getting started with another round of somewhat chaos. So
It's important to remember too, those at-home tests, you can't use those to return to school, or, if you need something to return to work, you really have to go get a PCR, but they are good, you know, you just wanna know right away, do I have COVID? You can get some false positives and false negatives, so it's always good to follow up with, a PCR, which is what we always recommend.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Mr. De Palma.
Good evening, Shelley. This is Gary DePalma. I don't know if you can see us or not yet. I have one question for you. If you're not feeling well, you go get a test, and the test comes back negative, should you still stay away, or are you okay to continue on with your normal everyday activities?
Get a negative PCR test, then you don't have COVID, so you're okay. You probably have a common cold. There are some respiratory viruses going out right now. So if you're coughing and sneezing and you've got a really bad runny nose, you just have to remember you should stay home anyways until your symptoms subside substantially, because you're just gonna spread that virus. So it's good practice to, if you're sick, you need to stay home for a day or two, then you do that. And always, if you get a COVID test and you're waiting for the results, you should not be out. You should be home quarantining until you get those results. And then if they're negative and you're feeling okay and the symptoms have kind of subsided, then you can chalk it up to a common cold and go out and manage your business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. De Palma. Any other comments or questions?
Selectman Bendel as well, I'd like to ask Shelley a question.
Please.
Hi, Shelley, thank you. Full disclosure, I have a breakthrough case right now, and my question was, I was actually supposed to get a booster shot, and I got tested positive the day before, so obviously I had to cancel. Can I still get a booster? For
I would
a
wait.
certain amount of time?
Yeah, I would wait 90 days.
Okay.
You're souped up with some antibodies right now.
Yeah.
So I would wait 90 days.
90.
90.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Lil. And Lil, I would be remiss if I didn't say, obviously, we're sorry you can't be here tonight, but we're glad to hear that you're on the mend and you're doing much better. So,
Thank you, I appreciate that.
and appreciate you being
It
with
was
us.
mild, everything Shelley said is true. It's mild, thankfully, so it's taking vaccination.
We're certainly glad you're doing well. Any other comments or questions for Mr.
Just,
Jones?
to Shelley, thank you, Shelley, for the report. Doesn't seem to be going in the wrong direction. I hope it doesn't continue that trend, but thank you for what you're doing with the staff and staying on top of things, always very responsive to the community.
Thanks, yeah. I was stressed out last week, man, but it's still kind of got it under control with the cases and then doing the clinic and everything, but just back in every day is just the same.
Thank you, Mr. Kyra. And Shelley, thanks again. We really appreciate the update. You know, full disclosure, we really appreciate the way you were so helpful to my family, when we had our round with it a few months back. So you guys are the best. We really appreciate all the hard work you and your department are putting in, and please let us know what we can do to help going forward. All right. Anything else from Ms. Newhouse? All right, Shelley, thank you so much for being here. Okay, we'll move on to our next appointment, which is with Valerie Gingrich, our Director of Planning and Conservation, regarding the Hazardous Mitigation Plan update. I believe you have some of your colleagues here as well, right?
Yes.
And Valerie, also joining you is Paul Looney and Jamie McGaldy. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. And Val, thanks so much for your patience also, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, John. For those that know, Valerie Gingrich, Director of Planning and Conservation, and as the chairman said, or the acting chairman said, Jamie McGaldy, Operations Manager for DPW, and Paul Looney, Town Engineer, are here as well to help with any questions that the board may have.
Thank you.
So tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the 2021 Hazard Mitigation Plan update that the board will be asked to adopt formally tonight. And first, to set the stage, when we talk about hazards in this context, we're talking about natural hazards, so flooding, high winds, those types of hazards. And when we talk about mitigation, I'm going to read you the quote on the screen from FEMA. It's the effort to reduce loss of life and property by lessening the impact of disasters. Mitigation is taking actions now before the next disaster to reduce human and financial consequences later. So these plans, FEMA requires us to update them every 5 years. And for this update, we applied for a state grant for funding to work on the update and also to create the town's first municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. It's an MVP plan. And those plans work hand in hand. The HMP looks at current hazards, and the MVP looks at future hazards in light of a changing climate. So we were awarded $31,000 for a grant, and we put that towards hiring consultants to work on the plans. We hired Green International and Jamie Kaplan. The planning process included 2 half-day workshops and 2 public listening sessions held at different parts in the process, different times in the process. And there was a core team of individuals, they're listed on the slide, that was involved throughout the process, providing updated information and actively working on the development of the plan. We did some targeted outreach to the public during the process through elderly services, veteran services, and the library, in addition to our typical outreach through media and the press and social media. So getting into the particulars of the plan, 4 general mitigation goals were set up with the plan. And I'll quickly read through those. First, to prevent and reduce the loss of life, property, and infrastructure from natural hazards, to prioritize green solutions and environmental protection, to build resilience to natural hazards through the integration of hazard mitigation and climate adaptation principles into town plans and regulations, and to increase public awareness of natural hazard risks and mitigation activities through education and research. So our top hazards, flooding, high winds, hurricanes, tropical storms, and severe winter events, nor'easters. These hazards and more hazards that we face are outlined in detail in the plan. There's a section on each hazard talking about probability, duration, with a whole lineup of information. And you'll notice these are pictures from Wilmington. You'll see the backhoe at the DPW admin building there in the water, some flooding. And thinking about those top hazards, I wanted to give you some examples of actions that were completed since the last plan update in 2015. And those include Mass Ave Drainage Improvement Project, looking at flooding, a tree inventory and risk assessment when we think about high winds and tree damage, acquiring heavy-duty tow-behind tree chipper, thinking about high winds and storms, and then acquiring several heavy-duty dump trucks with plow and sander, thinking about winter events and nor'easters. We have
a lineup of, in the plan, in the updated plan, we have a lineup of action items, and I wanted to give you some examples of those. Route 62 culvert replacement at Martins Brook, thinking about flooding. Public outreach to homeowners about drought and the value of wetlands. Drought is one of the natural hazards that's included in the plan and will probably become increasingly something we talk about as the climate changes. Relocation of the DPW admin building out of the floodplain. And then migration and education program for invasive species. Invasive species are one of the natural hazards that we face, and what you see moving on the screen is an Asian longhorn beetle, and this guy can devastate tree canopies, and we are on the lookout for it. So to wrap up this just sort of quick introduction and overview of the plan was reviewed by FEMA, and it'll receive its final approval following the board's adoption. And the plan makes us eligible for FEMA hazard mitigation grants. And both this hazard mitigation plan and the MVP plan are posted on the town's website, so folks can look at it and download it. And I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gingrich. I appreciate you and your colleagues' work on this. Very good presentation. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Ms. O'Connell.
First of all, Barry, thank you very much for being here for this presentation. I appreciate it. Also want to thank your core team that's line listed on page 3. Certainly not going to list everybody by name, but it's in the presentation, and certainly know that it's a total team effort. I had a specific question regarding your future plans, and I was hoping that you could share what the plan is for the relocation of the DPW admin building out of the floodplain and how that is going to be done.
Sure, so the hazard mitigation plan doesn't get into detail about where the relocation would be necessarily. The idea is that the building would be, or the folks would be relocated out of that location because it's floodplain and floods. But we don't have a specific location as to where they would be going. I know you know as well as other folks in this room that there is a facility master plan that was worked on a few years ago that talks about that as well. So it doesn't necessarily say where to put them, but it says that we should look at getting them out of their current location.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to follow up on that is, with this plan being a 2021 hazard mitigation plan update, does this come, once this is filed, does it come with a set of timeline milestones or anything that this needs to be executed upon?
No, this is a document that allows us to get grant money or apply for grant money. So it's sort of a menu of things that we can do, but we're not held to a timeline to do them. So it's more opportunities for us to be proactive and get grant money for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Carey.
Chair, well, I went through a little bit of the report. Great, thank you for this. Thank goodness that Commissioner doesn't move around on the paper. But I noticed on page 22 of the report where we talked about the water supply, you mentioned that 95% of the, that Wilmington uses water, and 95% of it is by municipal wells, 5 is private, but it didn't mention anything about MWA or, you know, any situation with what we're going through with the shutting down the wells. Did that not, is that not part of the overall report? Does it not matter?
No, so we talked about that during the process, and it came up when we were talking about drought, and you know there were some residents active in the process and commenting on some of our brooks being drawn down sometimes when it's dry, and that was definitely talked about how much water we use from the MWRA, how much is off of our wells, and sort of the fluctuation with the seasons. But that 95%, I think, was to show more so private wells versus public wells, but we didn't get into, I don't think in here, how much water we use, because it varies over the season, over the year.
No, I just didn't know if it made sense to mention that when, you know, the water supply is being supplemented by NWRA rather than just all of our whole well. Okay. Something I noticed, I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Cairo. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Valerie, I want to thank you. Is there anything else, gentlemen, you would like to add? Okay. I want to thank you for this presentation. I too appreciate your work and all the core team efforts on this. I also particularly want to point out how pleased I was to see that you had the public listening sessions spread over a couple of months. So thank you, and thank you to the residents who volunteered to help out. If there's no objection, I'd like to see if we could take up agenda item number 7 out of order, which is a board to consider the adoption of the updated hazard mitigation plan.
So moved.
Hearing no objection, if someone would like to offer a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Motion's been made by Mr. De Palma. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Kyra. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell.
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Kyrie, yes.
Lori Maselli, yes.
And Greg Bendel, yes. It is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We're going to sign, right? This one? Oh, you got that. Gotcha. Okay, well, the mitigation plan is being signed by the members. We'll welcome our final appointment this evening. It is with Terry Marciello, Elderly Services Director, and Lieutenant Ryan Quigley of the Wilmington Fire Department regarding sand for seniors and a file for life. Good evening to both of you. Thank you for your patience this evening, and welcome.
Well, brought us here today, obviously, the program called Sand Buckets for Seniors program. And so it's great to once again say the fire department and the Wilmington Department of Elderly Services working together very closely on another program. And I think the year 2022, we have a lot of plans for. So I'm going to let Lieutenant Quigley explain how this all got started.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Selectmen, and Mr. Hall for having us. So fortunately, I was fortunate enough to attend a fire and life safety conference back in September of this year. And during it, I was able to sit in on one of the presentations from, I forget exactly what town he was from, but they were talking about, they do a sand bucket or salt bucket for senior citizens in their town, in Charlton, that's where he was from. And basically what the program is it's a free bucket of sand salt mixture. We get it from the DPW out of the salt shed. We're gonna fill them up and drop them off at the residents' houses for them. If they need to be filled, then we'll come out and top them off for them. And the whole point behind it is just to kind of, it's for fall safety mitigation, to kind of keep the seniors safe in the winter time when there's icy conditions. And it's really intended for people that would have trouble going out and maybe purchasing a big bag of sand or salt for themselves. So I got together, I reached out to Terry at Elder Services, and she thought it was a great idea. And she's done a lot of the coordinating and that as far as people who are eligible and we've already have a real lot of interest in it, so. But yeah, that's kind of, it's a pilot program, it's our first year doing it, so we're gonna start off, originally we were gonna do 25, but I think we're up to 40 now that we're gonna go with, and kind of cut off from there just to make sure we don't get too overwhelmed on our first year, but kind of keep a record of how it's going and, you know, reassess and hopefully continue it for a while, so.
The other thing I'd like to mention is that we were really lucky with Lieutenant Quigley reaching out to Ace Hardware. They were able to get us the buckets. They originally started with the 25 buckets. Again, and also a scoop comes with it, and you know that a lot of thought went into it about the lid opening up. So a lot of thought went into the program as to how to make it easier for the people to use. The other thing is that we have had a huge response, more than we ever had intended. And so again, originally we were thinking the 25, we extended it to 40. We have quite a few people that are on quite a few people on the list. So we're trying to figure out how we're doing this, but it's wonderful that people are responding, and the people that are calling are extremely appreciative, saying this would be extremely helpful. One side note is very interesting just to share and kind of fun to share, is that we had a woman I was sharing with Lieutenant who called and said she wanted to be on the list, and we asked the street, we asked the age. There's a few things we ask as a pilot program. And so she said she lived on Hyatt Avenue. And so she kept talking and getting very agitated with us that we didn't know where Hyatt Avenue was. And I asked, what's in her location, what's in your backyard type thing, and there's Lowe's, and I'm thinking, okay, so she must be Woburn. So to make a very long story short, as in several calls, the woman was from Wilmington, Ohio. And so we did a lot of conversations back and forth to Ohio, and she was very upset that Ohio was not offering this and several things that she saw on our newsletter. But we actually talked to the Council on Aging there too to make sure that she was attended to. But the nice thing is that it is, the way that Lieutenant got the information together for it, it's just very clear, and the most important thing is that fall risk. So we're just very happy to be working together on this, and we see that it will help quite a few.
Yeah. So just like a few details of it, it's open to residents of Wilmington age 60 and above. Terry's kind of doing the vetting process, make sure that they have to be capable of actually spreading it out themselves, no mobility issues, stuff like that, and then live in a house, like a single family type house, not like an apartment building or anything like that. But yeah, basically just, I was, like I said, I was fortunate enough to sit into one of these presentations, and I just thought it was awesome, and it's real simple to get set up and get going, and we get a grant every year through the state to help fund programs like this. And it also kind of opens the door for us as public safety to maybe assess other issues if the residents want as well. The other thing that we're going to offer is a file of life. If you guys aren't familiar, basically it goes on your refrigerator. It has your emergency contact information, medication, stuff like that. It's stuff that we can use in an emergency situation if the person needing help can't communicate properly or lives with someone that can't communicate, and it just kind of gives us the information that we may need. So, and that's just going to be included. We have some of these as well. But no, I went down, I talked to the guys at Ace, and he was more than willing. He said, how many do you want? I said, well, 25. And he said, all right. And he grabbed one of the guys. He said, hey, grab them 25 buckets. So they donated those. And we were able to find some lids on Amazon that they're for fishing buckets, but I mean, they just open right up. It's easy for the residents to get open, and you know, they don't have to deal with trying to peel that thing off and whatever. So we're hoping to have a lot of success, and hopefully it goes pretty smooth and we can keep it going, you know, so.
The other thing is that for the month of, so this year I was saying for the 2022 coming up, which I can't believe I'm saying, there will be a few programs, and also we have been speaking for the spring of 2022 to be able to start that Remembering When, a program we did about safety in your home. that we did with the fire department, say 5 years ago, I think it is, and to bring that back. So Lieutenant Quigley was very happy to say that I think that we can do that. So I think we're really heading in the right direction. And then also the fact that Lieutenant did mention about the DPW, also sharing the fact that we can go get the sand at any time. So again, it's a joint effort, and it's really great to be a part of everyone helping out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to both of you for being here and for your work on this. I think this is a fine example of a wonderful partnership between departments in town and a local business. It's just another way to help our residents. So we thank you so much. Another example of going above and beyond, from here to Ohio, apparently. So, thank you. I'll open it up if any of my colleagues have questions or comments. Mr. Kyra?
Yeah, thank you. This is a great new program. Congratulations for getting it off the ground. You mentioned about DPW will supply. Are they going to be filling it, or
Nope,
is
so-
the fire department filling it?
So we're gonna, basically, if you wanna break it down into simple terms, we're gonna be doing the legwork as the fire department. Myself and a couple others I've asked to kinda help volunteer. We're gonna go down to the salt shed. I had reached out to Jamie a couple months ago and had asked about it, and he said that it's open to residents anyways. If they wanna come, they can fill up their buckets and bring them home. So we're just kind of take advantage of that, but do it for them, if you will. And then if, hopefully it won't be too bad of a winter, but if they need to be filled or whatever, then we can go around and just kind of top them off as needed.
So do they call you up when they think it needs to be refilled?
Yeah, they'll,
You just go
so
around?
Terry's kind of been taking care of the communication aspect of it right now. I'm currently in class as well. That'll be finishing up this week, but and then hopefully get a little more involved. But she's been really great at getting the information from everyone. She has a whole spreadsheet made of people that are interested and addresses and stuff like that. So, but yeah, if they need it, then they'll call, make a request, and we'll get out there as we can and top them off for them.
We tried to funnel it through the Department of Elderly Services as the phone calls, so it wouldn't complicate the dispatch or the police calls, just so that because we know exactly what the program is, so they wouldn't, just to not bog down their system at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works twofold. I mean, it's a wellness check on top of the.
Absolutely, yeah.
And sometimes, just like the lieutenant was saying, you can find something else that could potentially be an issue, but there people are afraid to speak of.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Kyra. Ms. O'Connor?
I just want to say thank you very much for taking this on. I think all the major points have been shared, and I appreciate that. I think it's so key, because a lot of people, either they don't have transportation or the finances, or to even lift a bucket like that to put into their vehicle, it's a lot. So I'm hoping this will really take off for you. If there's anything that I can do to help with that personally or professionally or through this board, I'm happy to do that. And then the other piece, just to state it, like the file of life, my grandmother, who has since passed, but not that long ago, during the last period of her life, we had frequent calls to Wilmington, who were always right there. People were wonderful with her, but the file of life that was on the refrigerator was so key to helping whoever might have been there to have that medical history with the pertinent information. And my grandmother was very diligent about making sure if there were any medication changes through her health issues, just even a dosage change from a physician's visit. I think that's such an incredible tool. So I know we're talking about winter, but I wanted to just give an extra shout out for that piece too, because a lot of people, it takes a village to care for our aging population, and whoever touches that will have an updated record. And that's the first thing, is what medication is the person on. So that can apply for anybody, but just in general. So I just want to say both of these things, are real value-added resources to the town. I just want to thank you and both of your teams and whoever else, DPW or otherwise, that's helping you. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connor. Mr. DePalma?
Thank you very much. I believe I heard that as you're dropping these containers off, you're also making observations to see if there's any other issues that an individual may not bring forward.
Well, what it kind of as a side intention would be, as we're dropping them off, speaking with the residents, and then just asking, you know, hey, do you want me to take a look around? Nothing like officially, but, you know, and if they want to, then, you know, we can go in and take a look around, be like, hey, you know, like maybe, like this could be a fire hazard, or like your smoke detectors are out of date, or anything like that. Kind of a side goal is to have more community outreach and be able to kind of, not really like get into people's houses to be invasive or anything, but just to kind of make sure that, you know, like if you have older people living alone, they're not as sharp as they used to be, and sometimes, you know, they might forget stuff or not realize that something could be a hazard, and, you know, it's good to identify them, but it would only be if they wanted us to.
That's terrific, though, because
Yeah.
we all know, whether we're old, and I can say old, or young, we forget.
Yeah.
We see things and we say we'll do it later, or whatever the case may be. And
Right.
to have someone dropping off something like this, and you see a railing, for instance, as you're walking up very loose, letting the individual know, you could be saving someone from a severe injury.
Yeah.
And I commend you. I know you're not there as an inspector or anything, but as you see things. But then again, this is just another example on what Wilmington can do, and what Terry pushes out all the time for the seniors in town.
Yeah.
And I just commend you for what you're doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePalma. Anybody else?
As well, hi, thank you so much. I'm just gonna keep it, simple and just say thank you so much for this. This is a fantastic initiative, and I think it's gonna probably grow each year, as you're already seeing that. Maybe not as far as Ohio, but at least within town. But who knows, maybe that woman's gonna, go to her, you know, select board or whatever type of government they have out there and get it going there. But in all seriousness, I'd love to see this expand here and, you know, do what we can do to help, you know, grow it. So thank you so much for doing it. It's such an important thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. So I think it's safe to say you have our full support in this. We really appreciate you taking this initiative on, both of you and your departments. And it's just, like I said, a fine example of the way that some of our departments work together constantly for the benefit of our residents. And we really appreciate it. Please let us know what we can do to help, and we hope it'll be a great success.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to communications. Mr. Hull.
Yes, under communications, the first item is correspondence from Kelly Newhouse, the health director. This was sent to the finance committee. They met last week. It was status at the time of the number of cases, and I guess just in terms of the striking numbers here, on October 9th, 47 cases. October 23rd, it went up to 77, then 79 on the 6th of November, and then up to 128. On the 20th of November, 173. On the 3rd of December, 197. On the 6th, and now, as you heard, 272 cases. So the numbers, unfortunately, seem to be growing exponentially.
Thank you.
Next, under communications, is a memo from me to the board with regard to the status of the assistant town manager, HR director search. There was a committee that was put together to review applicants and to conduct some screening interviews. I received 3 candidates to consider and have interviewed the candidates and expect within the next 10 days or so to be making a final decision on that position. The expectation is in most cases in these kind of positions, the person would be requiring 3 or 4 weeks of notice to their employer.
Thank you.
Next is a memo from me to the board with regard to a schedule for the special town meeting. As you recall, we are in the eligibility period for the MSBA program with the Wildwood School, and as a consequence, we need to have a town meeting to appropriate funds for feasibility study by or before March 28th when the eligibility period ends. Based upon a prior meeting of the board, there was a willingness to consider a meeting on March 8th. And so based upon that, this schedule lays out the plan, which would be looking to have the board call the special town meeting at your next meeting on January 10th. The board would need to consider whether to open and close the meeting that same night or extend the period for deadline for submission of petition articles, if that was the case. And then beyond that, it outlines the various key dates that are required. There's the Finance Committee, of course, would need to have a public hearing, and there's public notice required for that. The board would be asked to sign the warrant at your meeting on February 14th. We're trying to avoid having activities or meetings on the week of February vacation, so we're steering clear of that. The Finance Committee would have their public hearing on the 15th of February. If there are petition articles that relate to zoning, the planning board would have to do the same. And then we would also, the clerk's office would have a deadline to register folks who are interested in voting at that meeting, and that would be February 16th. Finance Committee recommendation, they would meet on the 17th to make their determination, and ultimately we would have the warrant posted by or before the 22nd of February. Finance Committee would have to get their recommendation to the town clerk by February 1st, with the town meeting scheduled for the 8th at the auditorium.
I have one question on this. Can I bring it up now?
Sure, Mr. DePalma.
At this time, Mr. Hull, are there any other articles that you're preparing for this special town meeting, other than pertaining to the Wellwood School?
No, no other articles.
Thank you, sir.
Next is also a memo from me to the board, just providing a check-in, if you will, on the site assignment process for the solid waste disposal facility. You'll recall 887 Woburn Street, there's a proposal to have a construction and demolition transfer station. At the moment, the Department of Environmental Protection is reviewing the site and will be issuing a site suitability report. We expect that could happen before the end of the year, or if not, early next year. Once that happens, the Board of Health will have 30 days to conduct a hearing, public hearing, and then they must render a decision within 45 days of the initial start of that hearing. One of the things that is in process now, the Board of Health will have to appoint a hearing officer. We've been working with council to identify someone, and the expectation is that that will be lined up as well. And so that process, we anticipate, will be moving forward shortly.
Thank you.
Next is a memo from me with regard to legal review of Reading Municipal Light license. You'll recall the RMLD had filed and obtained a grant for electric vehicle charging stations. There are 3 that are proposed for Reading, 2 in Wilmington, 1 here at the town hall, the other at the library. And RMLD needs to obtain a license from the town to establish these charging stations. The license document I would typically have a town council review in this case, because KP Law represents both the town and the RMLD. There would either have to be a disclosure process where both communities, RMLD and the town, would agree that a conflict doesn't exist and authorize KP to do the review, or the other option that I've been working on is to ask the town of Reading if for their counsel, if they could review the document on our behalf. The board would have to authorize their counsel to serve as special counsel specifically for the purpose of reviewing this license. Certainly they've already done it on behalf of RMLD, so it seems like it would be a fairly straightforward process. So one of the things I would be asking the board to authorize me to do is to move forward with that and to designate their RMLD's counsel as special counsel specific for this purpose.
Thank you.
Next is a memo from Mike Woods. This is in response to the board's request that it be kept abreast of what's going on with the treatment plants in light of the PFAS that was identified. He notes that the treatment plants are running according to plan. We did have the monthly sampling that was done on December 1st. The Sargent treatment plant had a non-detect, and the Butters Row treatment plant had a 4.1 parts per trillion detect level. You'll recall that samples that are at or above 20 parts per trillion require a public notification process. He also notes here that in light of the situation that we had earlier in November, late October, there was a notice that went out to residents, all water users, about the PFAS situation, even though it did not, after the fact, hit the 20 parts per trillion. We have a memo from Beth Lawrenson, the town clerk, just advising the board that we did receive the draft document from General Code, who is the vendor that has been reviewing the town's inhabitant bylaws, and based upon consultation with the inhabitant bylaw committee, has provided a draft document for review. We now have, the town that is, has 45 days to review the document. So if board members could take a look at this, and if you have particular questions or comments to add, please provide them to the town clerk so that she can compile those and either respond, or if there's questions that we need to follow up with General Code, we can do so. As I noted earlier in a prior presentation, the plan would be to the extent that the board is comfortable with this, prepare articles for the upcoming town meeting in April that would modify the inhabitant bylaws.
Mr. Chair,
Carol.
to the town manager. So this is the final, the preliminary draft, I should say, of the inhabitant bylaws committee report, right?
Yes.
Of their meetings. Should we, since a lot of these, I mean, there's a couple hundred pages here, and we're going to ask the residents to vote on this at town meeting, should
Yes.
this be provided for the townspeople to look at it now, so that they, to provide them articles right before town meeting may not give them enough time to review it, and they may, there may be some issues, but if we put it out there earlier than later, we'll give them ample time to look at all the changes, or if there were no changes that the inhabitant bylaw committee worked so hard on in putting this all together for us.
Yeah,
throwing it out.
I don't think there's probably any harm in, making it putting it on the town's website or making it available for people to comment on. Ultimately, I think there's going to be three categories of votes that will be asked. One will be changes in form as opposed to substance. One of the things that General Code tried to do is make the document literally more user-friendly in terms of just the organization of the articles themselves, so it wouldn't necessarily constitute changes in substance, but changes in form. There will be other pieces that are recommended to be removed because they're no longer pertinent or relevant. But yeah, I think we can certainly make it available for the public to have access to and offer comment on.
Thank you, Mr. Kyra. And also, we want to send our thanks to the volunteers of the Bylaw Committee for who spent a lot of time putting this together, so thank you to those volunteers. Ms. O'Connell?
Selectman Bennett, before we go any further, I apologize. I was tabling my questions regarding one of the memos. I'd like to ask if you can extend me the courtesy of going back to the RMLD before we get too far down the track.
Of course.
I didn't want to interrupt, but since we are fielding questions. For that, is that going to come back to us as a board to consider item at some point in terms of authorizing, or are you going to be looking for us to authorize the Reading Council to look at this? Is that going to come at a future board meeting?
Mr. Hall?
I believe the license itself, if council believes that it's that there's no issues with it in terms of negative impact to the town, that I could sign it as town manager. If the board prefers to review it, one of my concerns is that I know that they're trying to get the project engineered and so on. So,
right.
But if there's a desire to see the document before it's signed off on, I should bring it back to the board on January 10th.
Gotcha. Well, in looking at the memo, it says, I'm seeking authorization from the Board of Selectmen to engage the services of Reading's legal counsel to review the draft license.
Right.
So is that coming in I don't see it as a board to consider. Is this?
It did not make it on as a board to consider, but I know as town council has noted in the past, as long as it's on the agenda, or even under communications, the board can take action. So my preference would be if the board can authorize that this evening. Otherwise, we have to take it up at the next meeting.
Okay, so through the chair, in my opinion, we skipped over that step, and I think that's important. If we are going to engage a law firm, I'd be interested in knowing who it is. If there's a cost associated with it. I understand the reason why we can't have KP Law is because they have Reading Municipal Light as a client. If Reading Municipal Light is picking up the cost, I can understand the spirit and intention of that because we were awarded the 2 electric vehicle charging stations. But typically, when I've had any sort of legal professional business done, whoever's paying the bill is the client. So whether it's something where Wilmington has a contract for service, if we choose to go the attorney route with whatever that law firm is, and if it's possible for us to be the client of record and that we remit payment and then we seek reimbursement for Reading, I just don't like the optics of Reading paying the bill for us to hire another attorney that they recommended that we hire. And I'm not insinuating anybody's doing anything underhanded, but I just don't, if it's a license that's being issued from Reading Municipal Light and we're getting an attorney, whoever that might be, and they're paying the bill, I just, I'm not really comfortable with that being handled that way. It's one thing if we have a contract for service and we pay that counsel and we remit payment and we're the client of record and they review it and give us their legal opinion, and if it's $500 or it's $1,000 and then we submit that receipt, to Reading Municipal Light for reimbursement as part of this partnership post-review, I see that differently than having them be somehow listed on a contract of our review, you know, with a legal team. I don't know what my other board members feel about it. I don't want to make a big deal out of nothing, but this license, you know, we're going to have to live with what's on it, you know, and I'm not an attorney, so.
Certainly, the arrangement could be that the town pays for the cost of the review. I can't imagine it's going to take, you know, more than, you know, it's going to be, 45 minutes from now. They've already looked at the document for Reading, and to my knowledge, it's a template document, so I don't imagine it's going to be, you know, an expensive proposition. So certainly the bill could be sent to the town, we pay the firm, town council, Reading town council, and then seek reimbursement from RMLD. I don't see that as an issue.
That would be my preference. I don't know how other members feel.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. O'Connell. I appreciate you drawing attention to this. You know, I too personally would feel uncomfortable given the fact that we don't even have the council's firm name listed. Is one thing. Certainly want to be able to make sure that members are comfortable with appointing the firm or retaining the services of the firm for a short period of time, however it may be. But that's my thoughts. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I would
Mr.
agree
Carver?
with both Ms. O'Connell and you, Mr. Bendel. It would be nice to see a copy of the contract, as I'm not an attorney either, but just to look it over.
Copy of the contract for
For what we're going to be signing for.
Oh, okay, so you're looking to see the lease, the license?
We're talking about having law lawyers from Reading
Right, Reading
look over
town
something
council.
for us.
Right,
It would be, I guess it would be nice if we saw what that something was.
okay, yeah, I can certainly provide the license to the board to take a look at. Yeah, that's not a problem. So is the intent then to authorize the review, or do you want to wait until you see this document and then authorize the review?
But for me, it would be the license and who the law firm is, and what the cost of the review is. So it'd be a copy of the license, who the law firm that's being recommended, and what the projected cost for review would be.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I don't think it's appropriate to take action tonight, and I would leave it to the Chair Maselli to decide if it's going to be on the next agenda or future agenda for us to vote on. Any other questions or comments regarding this memo?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Okay, Mr. Hull, I think we just finished the preliminary draft general code. I think I'm up next. Okay, next up is an update from myself regarding the Senior Center Building Committee recommendation. The committee met on November 30th. Marco Crescentini, the senior project architect with Dietz Company and Architects, made a presentation to our committee on the 3 remaining town sites at the meeting of November 30th. Discussion took place on each of the remaining 3 sites, the Swain Green site, the Glen Road site, and the former St. Dorothy site. 3 options were presented for possible use at the Swain Green site, and following numerous questions from committee members and comments from the audience, each of the 3 options were removed from further consideration. Mr. Crescentini also presented options for the Glen Road location that included a new senior center and the eventual removal of a town hall, a senior center on a portion of the athletic fields with the existing town hall remaining in place, and a scenario that considered a new town hall and school administration building and senior center on the site utilized for a portion of the athletic fields. 3 sitting options were also offered at the St. Dorothy's property. A healthy discussion took place about the pros and cons on the 2 remaining sites under consideration. George Hooper, chair of the committee, called for a vote of the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. A majority of the committee members voted in favor of a new senior center being located at the former St. Dorothy's property. The time and effort of the committee members and the engagement of residents in these deliberations is to be commended. Clear progress is being made in the pursuit of a new senior center. Thank you.
Okay, next under
I have-
communication, is.
Mr. DePalma.
Excuse me, I have one question regarding the St. Dorothy's property. What's the acreage of that the town now owns?
It's a
Mr.
little
Hall?
over 7 acres, I think it's about 7.5 or 7.6, something in that order.
Okay, and the question I have is, would it be, if that is the location of the senior center, would it be logical to consider senior housing there also, since it is a large parcel? No, just curiosity.
Yeah, that would be something we definitely have to look at. I can't say offhand whether there would be space available. My sense is, based upon the discussions and the diagrams that I've seen, that the senior center would take up the vast majority of the property. There's a little L-shaped leg that runs parallel to Glen Road, but that certainly wouldn't be adequate for any kind of housing. So we would have to take a look at that, but my sense is at this point that it would be difficult to put housing on that property if the senior center were to go there.
Thank you.
Mr. DePalma, just to add to that, so the committee saw 3 variations of a senior center on that site. That's still to be determined. It was the recommendation of the committee to have it located there on that site, but the specific, layout and design is to be determined. So we saw, and it's going to be, it's available, I believe, on our website, those graphics where you can kind of see a senior center closer to the Route 38 side, one that's to the south a little bit more, and then one turned, horizontally and vertically. But the pictures, the images are very useful in my opinion. It kind of gives you a sense of where it would be on the property, where the parking might be, and what would be left over for space. So I would encourage you to take a look.
Thank you, Mr. Bendel, I appreciate that.
Sounds good.
Mr. Chair, please, not that I want to make a debate out of this, but you bring up a good point, Mr. DePalma, about senior housing. If the, ultimately, the recommendation is that a senior center be put at the current town hall site, that opens up the opportunity for senior housing at St. Dorothy's. I don't know if at the time they saw a bigger picture when they were making a recommendation to us, but that certainly is a viable option, putting the senior center here and holding that St. Dorothy's in abeyance for senior housing. They could also be a town hall. Who knows how it's going to ultimately work its way out.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Any other comment? Ms. O'Connor?
Since we're, having further discussion beyond just the update, and I don't want to elongate the meeting, but I think that this is important. I know we still have a lot of substance to go through. But there's never a good time to really bring this up. But I would just say that, tonight we had a discussion about a special town meeting for a Wildwood school. We're having this update. We also have the school admin town hall discussion. There's a myriad of different projects. I just want to say through the chair to the town manager, which I have already said to Jeff, and I know he's heard me, as one sitting member, I just think the communication and how we kind of wrap this all together and present information out to the community is critically important. I'm starting to sense some community dissension among various projects because people are not understanding. That's not to say people are not doing their job or that committees are not doing quality workmanship in their given meetings and the hours that they're putting in. It is nothing directed at any one committee or for people to take personal. I'm talking just a collective communication. There will be people that don't understand why there's a special town meeting for a Wildwood school, not understanding that it's part of an MSBA process and that it has to happen in that timeline in order to receive the state funding and to meet some of the eligibility requirements. And that is in no way, shape, or form the town saying that schools are more important than senior centers or town halls or fire substations and any other project. We've had an opportunity to participate in this offering, and we need to fall in the timeline that's been set by the state in order to be eligible for that funding. In addition, some of the commentary that's been out there regarding this senior project and some recent letters to the editor, you know, this isn't about politics. This is more just the fact that I'm feeling that we have members of this committee that are sitting members of this Board of Selectmen, and not that you need my defense, you can speak for yourselves. But on behalf of the two members of this board and this town manager, who are putting in considerable amounts of time, I feel that you are being unfairly characterized in your given roles, and for that, I'm sorry for. You're doing a lot of work on behalf of the town, on behalf of this board. I may not agree with everything that each of you how you might want to see things in the projects, and we can agree to disagree. A lot of things we do agree upon, but there's no doubt in my mind that the lines of questioning that you're asking, the fiduciary responsibility that you have taken, to have articles going out there in any way, shape, or form mentioning you in any capacity with reference to Mel Brooks movies with violence and cruelty to the elderly or anyone is absolutely atrocious and just downright rude and unacceptable. So I just want to take this opportunity to publicly get it out there that no one on this committee or this board here has ever spoke out against any of these projects. But at the same time, we've been elected to not rubber stamp things. We've been chartered with asking difficult questions, probing questions, understanding that what is being put before us will yield the best product and the best financial, resource that we can afford, and that if we do all of these projects and we have to pay for them all, the money has to come from somewhere. And there are a lot of needs with a limited budget. So I would just say that going forward, this is going to be a very challenging time as to how to bring all this together and communicate it to the public, and to see that each of these projects stand on their own merits, and that they get voted by the public, and that everyone has a voice. But I just want to close by saying that I appreciate the work that you're doing. And the last senior meeting, I mean, you took some hits and you hung in there. But I'm for a senior center. I'm for looking at a town hall's admin building and school building, and I'm for looking at a school. How it's all going to shake out in terms of the timeline and sites and how it's going to get paid for, we still need to work that out. But I appreciate the indulgence of this board with letting me get those points out there, because I feel I was very, very disturbed by some of the wording that's been put out there about these projects. And I think if that is any indication as to the type of turmoil that this is going to cause in pitting people against each other, if this isn't communicated and rolled out correctly from a public perspective, I think all the projects are in jeopardy. Because if people are confused and they don't know what to do, they either won't participate or they will vote things down because they have a lack of understanding as to what is actually going on. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. I appreciate your kind words, and I agree. I think we have a tall task ahead of us. I think you've highlighted that very eloquently, that we have some big decisions to make as a community, and it's a challenging time. I think people are concerned about what's going to happen, and we're all entitled to our opinions, as you mentioned. Full disclosure, I was on the losing end of the vote for the recommendation, and that's okay. It was not the first time I've been on the losing end of a vote. It probably won't be the last, and that's okay. The majority of the committee had a different idea, and I respect that. In fact, I respect all my colleagues on the committee, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done together over the last couple months in pursuit of a new senior center, which is our ultimate goal. And you're absolutely correct. I mentioned it at the meeting that I have yet to hear any member of the Board of Selectmen speak out against a new senior center, and I dare to say that I think we're all in favor of it. So I think you're right. I think we do need to take a look at the way we're communicating our plan going forward. I agree that it's super important that we encourage residents to come out on March 8th to vote for this MSBA funding of the new school, because we were only going to get one chance at this, in my opinion, to get essentially a very large coupon on what could be a new school. And again, it's worth repeating as many times as we can, the March 8th date has been set by the MSBA and not the town administration or the Board of Selectmen or any other committee here in town, that we have to abide by their timeline, and therefore That's why we're having this meeting in March. But I agree, there are some really difficult decisions that lie ahead, but I think if people remain positive and we continue to work together on these issues, I think we'll have some success in reaching our goals. And I appreciate your kind words. I too was discouraged to read some of the recent letters, but people are entitled to their opinion. But I'll just say that I'm very proud of my record of volunteering, and especially the work on this, so that I've worked alongside a good group of people in pursuit of a new senior center. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would just say that I am planning to attend the Elderly Services Commission meeting on the 16th. George Hooper's going to be there as well, and part of the intent there is to provide the commission, as well as the seniors and the public at large, a status on the projects, and talk about some of the things that you spoke about. We're certainly, you make a good point about the special town meeting. That is not that the date in particular is dictated by MSBA, but the eligibility period, the period within which we have to pursue funding, it ends on March 28th. So, that is the reason why we're pursuing this at that point, and it needs to be very, very clear and reiterated that it's not that we're sidelining a senior center, but we have to work within the rules of the grant provider, in this case MSBA. So that'll be talked about, as well as the plans for pursuing both a senior center and a town school admin building.
Mr. Chair, I just want to also thank Ms. O'Connell for her kind words. That the night, I think it was the 30th, was the last meeting. I did attend the senior center meeting, and I also had another meeting to attend, the rink committee. So I had to leave during it, and came back and was informed that there was disruption during it and booing, believe it or not. And then this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, this disgraceful article came out from, I think her last name was Russo. I might as well say it. She put my name in the article, as well as yours and Mr. Hull, and referencing a movie that had women being beat up. And where's the civility? I mean, what is going on? We're all in favor of the senior center. We all have opinions. We all want a brand new school. It's a sad commentary when people boo volunteers and write these disgraceful articles, and also for the paper and the social media to print them. I mean, they're opinion letters. They don't have to be printed as well, but they do for whatever reason. I don't know what happened to the civility and the common courtesy, but I hope it comes back. Thank you.
Mr. Palmer.
I, for one, have a lot of respect for you and Mr. Kyra for what you've been doing on these boards, on these committees. By following them, it must be very hard to choose your words, so it doesn't look like you're pitting one project over another. We all know on this board and in this community that there are a lot of issues coming up in infrastructure in this town. I can understand the seniors, the senior groups, being being more concerned that they're losing their place at the table, which I think is entirely wrong. I think they have the majority of the seats at the table. I don't foresee any issues with the senior center not going forward at a fairly rapid pace now, because you're that close to it. But we all have to be concerned because we do have school issues. My concern with the schools is that even if we get approval for Wildwood, which, like all of us here, I'm hoping that we do, it's not gonna be built in time. It may not be built in time, where we have to start looking and researching modulars for that school, which is gonna be another massive expense to the town. But I believe that we should all just take a breather, look at what is being proposed, and look at what's going on the back burner right now, so that we can work with the schools in Wildwood. For God's sakes, we need a substation. And one of these days, someone's gonna get hurt, because we can't get a truck up there, up that area fast enough. But we do have other issues in town. We do need a town hall. We know we need a town hall. We know we need a senior center. We know the schools are in need of repair. Let's just, everyone, just slow down a little. Look at what is being debated right now. The only two issues that are being debated right now are the senior center and the school. You're pitting young against old. And they can form very easily together because they're not going to affect each other. They're going on different grounds. If we get the funding from the state, we'll be moving forward with that. Plus, we've got to look at funding for the senior center. I have no qualms with putting a senior center up, and I have no qualms with putting the school up, and then addressing all the other issues we have in this town. And as we all know, there are many. But what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see conflict on this board or any other board, because we're arguing with each other over what goes first, what goes second. We all know what we have to do. And what we have to do now is just put our heads together and get it done. Everyone just slow down a little and let's see what transpires. The seniors will get their senior center, I strongly believe, and the schools will get their new school to start out with, I strongly believe. Then let's address everything else. But let's calm down and let's thank everyone that are volunteering for all these committees. I can disagree with Mr. Kyra, Mr. Bendel, Mr. McConnell, all I want, but I'm not going to be hostile about it, because that's when the problems occur. So, as much as I may disagree with something, I still support the individual. So let's just slow down a little right now. These allegations and the nastiness, it's the holiday seasons, let's stop it. Let's just address what we have to address. Right now we need a senior center, and right now we need a school. And let's work on those, and then go forward with everything else we have to do. That's all I have to say, Mr.
Thank you. Mr. Ho, maybe I could just ask you one question to clarify, because I don't want to get it wrong, but just so people are clear, and we're getting our messaging out there very clear to the residents on what they'll be asked on March 8th. But if they supported the MSBA funding on March 8th, that would then trigger a period of time that could be up to 5 to 8 years to have a Wildwood built. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, we're in the very infancy, if you will, of a school project. The next phase, which is this feasibility study, would enable the town to hire an owner's project manager and an architect to begin to look at the different scenarios that have been talked about in the past, whether there's a standalone new school to replace the Wildwood, whether there's a consolidation of schools, and all of those options, or at least a set of options, would be allowed through the MSBA process for the town to vet, and then ultimately come up with the approach that the town is seeking to take.
Right, and I think that's an important point that we've got to communicate to folks, that they, when they understand that they're being asked to vote for some MSBA funding for potentially a new Wildwood,
Right.
that it doesn't mean that that's going to be built tomorrow or the next day, that it's actually going to, it could be, 5 to 8 year process. This is just the beginning. So,
Right.
I would continue to encourage you, as Ms. O'Connell said, to make sure that we're very clear on that messaging that's going out.
Right, when we look at the high school project, that started, as I recall, in the 2009 timeframe. The building was actually opened in February of 15, so, it was several years to go through the process and various votes taken along the way, so it takes a while.
And it's up.
And also, it be noted that we received approximately 48% reimbursement from the state on that project. To think about building a school of that magnitude and not having a 48% coupon would be a staggering number. By today's standards, I think Billerica just built a $150 million high school. So if you use that to do the math on today, if we were to be looking at a coupon, that's, $75 million, or just under $70+ million that we certainly could utilize. So, it would not be wise to not pursue that, because we're going to need an early childhood center. These schools are not going to be able to stand up for the test of time, and it would be a missed opportunity of which we would probably never get back on again in the foreseeable future if we took a pass on this now.
That's right. These MSBA applications are highly competitive. As we've noted a number of times, Wilmington was one of 15 communities to get on this list and be in this eligibility phase of 71 communities that put in. So, and from what we're being told, the demand by communities for new schools and modifications and so on is very high. So that demand is only going to get more intense going forward.
And just as everyone has just said, we're looking at a 5 to 7 year window before we even put a shovel in the ground for a school. So for the senior center, we'll be putting a shovel in the ground a lot sooner than that. And I just hope the seniors that are concerned with this understand that we're close to a senior center. We're still far away from a school. Thank you.
Anything else? I'll just close this portion of the conversation by saying, and I think it's safe to say, we all really appreciate all the volunteers and the residents that are working together to make sure that we can have these projects come to life in the very near future. Okay, Mr. Hull, we have one final communication, please.
Yes, we have a communication from Senator Bruce Carr advising the board of a vote that was taken by the House and the Senate on December 3rd with respect to use of the ARPA money. The state, as you know, received funding similar, at least certainly at a greater level, but ARPA funding as the town has. So there's an appropriation of almost $4 billion in funding, and the outline that he provides looks at a breakdown of how those funds have been allocated or proposed to be allocated. The governor still needs to sign off, but there's a variety of categories here, including housing and energy and environment, education. One of the things that stands out is in terms of Wilmington, there's funding proposed, or at least approved at the House and Senate level, $40,000 to the Wilmington-Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce for small business assistance, development, promotion, to facilitate recovery from the impact of the 2019 COVID situation. $200,000 for the town of Wilmington to support the redesign and repaving of Deming Way Senior Housing parking access and sidewalk. The increase handicap accessibility and for repairs and upgrades to the state federally funded municipal housing, and then $50,000 for the town of Wilmington to support the expansion of sidewalks and associated stormwater runoff infrastructure in the Andover Street area. So if that ultimately prevails, that would be helpful to the town.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
question
Kyra.
to Ms. Hall. Ms. Hall, in looking at this and the $7 million plus that we're getting from the ARPA fund, I noticed there may be an overlap and there may be an opportunity to move some funds around. So you've designated $50,000 for branding and marketing for small businesses, and the state is giving us $40,000 earmarked for promotional facilities for the small businesses. It almost feels like an overlap. So is it possible to move that money, or the $50,000, to say, to the Board of Health, where I see the memo that came out that there are issues in maybe funding health nurse and another public health nurse part-time, where they may be looking for additional funds, and if we have them, you know, without adding to the budget, line item, and you had the $50,000 expendable to add to it, is that something that we can look at moving?
We could look at it. I guess I'd want to understand, what it is, this more specifically, this $50,000 is intended for. The specific recommendation that came from the study that was commissioned through the grant that we obtained several months ago was calling for funds specifically for this branding and marketing effort. I don't know if the $40,000, if it's open-ended and can be used for any number of purposes, or if it's directed towards, financial assistance to the businesses. I think it would be important to know that before looking to redirect the $50,000.
Yeah, I just didn't want there to be, an overlap if we could,
Right.
utilize the funds in another place.
Yeah.
Get
Try to get more
the most
information.
bang for our buck, so to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Kyra. Is there any other comments or questions? Okay, we will move on to board to consider items, and if you're just joining us, we already, earlier this evening, took up item number 6, which was a board to consider proclaiming January 3rd as Sean Collier Day in the town of Wilmington, which was unanimously supported. And also, item number 7, a board to consider adoption of the updated hazard mitigation plan, which was also unanimously supported. Which brings us to agenda item number 8, a board to consider approval of the execution of the town manager's employment agreement. And I would urge my colleagues to take no action on this this evening, given the fact that we believe we'll need to iron out a few more minor details.
So I'll make a motion to table this board to consider to a future date.
Thank you, Mr. Kyra. The motion's been made by Mr. Kyra, it's seconded by Mr. De Palma. Is there any discussion?
I would just ask, is there an intent to have a meeting between now and January 10th?
I would yield to my colleague, Ms. Maselli, who I would imagine will be happy to schedule something with you, but Ms. Maselli, I don't want to speak for you.
Yes, of course, we can get something scheduled.
So, Mr. Hull, I hope that answers the question. It sounds like we will, through Ms. Maselli, have to arrive at a date. Is there any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to take no action. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary Palmer, yes?
Kevin Kyra, yes.
Greg Bendel, yes, so it is unanimous. That brings us to board to consider item number 9, a request from a resident, Joseph Signa, to support a warrant article to name and dedicate the walking trail at Hathaway Acres in memory of Officer John Jack McGuire. And so, Mr. Hull, perhaps you could give us a little background. I know we received this request a few days ago. And although it is fairly early to be developing articles for the annual town meeting, I believe that this one would receive a lot of support from our community.
So, Mr. Jay Signa, who is a resident in the Hathaway Acres area, is suggesting that the board consider sponsoring an article to establish a plaque that would memorialize John Jack McGuire. There is a conservation area in that area, and there's some walking trails there, and he notes in a email communication, at least in part, this he still is considering a plaque for John Jack McGuire. He spoke with family about this, and Mr. and Desiree McGuire, the spouse of Mr. McGuire, is receptive to the idea. His vision is a standalone memorial plaque on a pole so that everybody can see it when they're going through the area, either down the street or over the trail. And so he is looking for the Board of Selectmen's support on that request. So it would be essentially a board to consider, doesn't have to be this evening, but when the warrant is, or prior to the warrant being prepared, an article that would seek to establish a plaque named for Mr. McGuire. He does indicate also he plans to do some fundraising, target the community to raise funds to pay for the cost of the plaque.
Thank you, Mr. Hull, and I personally believe this is a wonderful idea, and it is a board to consider item for us tonight. Again, it's fairly early in the development process of articles, but I entertain a motion if anybody's so interested.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea as well, and I'll make a motion to support this. But Mr. Holly, you're saying that we should hold off until we get to the warrant portion of, because is this kind of premature at this point in time?
Well, it can be done tonight. It certainly, I guess it would be helpful because we'll, as we put the articles together, we'll know that this one specifically needs to be drafted. If the board were to say they're not comfortable taking a vote tonight, you could always do it on the 10th. I mean, we do have a little time, but certainly from my perspective, it just is helpful to know, with as much time as possible, the articles that we'll be having to draft.
And are we talking about for March 8th or April 30th? I guess
No,
that's what I'm
that would be,
getting at.
this would be April 30th.
The April 30th,
yes.
okay. So I have a motion to be in favor of this article for the April 30th.
Thank you, Mr. Kira. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Ms. O'Connell?
So, I want to be clear, I'm supportive of this, but I just want to, and I don't want to be taken out of context by this board or the public, I have to disclaimer that, but just from a seeking to understand perspective of past practice and setting a precedent, is this going to be a Board of Selectmen issued warrant article, or are we just letting the potential petitioner know that we would be in favor of it going on the warrant? I see that as different aspects, and so I want to be very clear. It's my understanding in the past, when we've named corners of streets in different places, that the family and others were the petitioners of those articles and brought them forward. Is it the practice of this board to take up these individual things as sponsored warrant articles? To my knowledge and past practice, the answer is no. So I don't want to be taken out of context with the family or any resident in town. I 100% in support of this, but I just want to be clear how this has been done in the past, because I'm supportive of it, but I don't know that the Board of Selectmen should be the author of it.
Yeah, I think you raised a good question. Just for, to answer the question, so I think I've seen it both ways. Most recently, this past spring's town meeting, we had an article for Mr. Gillis to rename the corner where he grew up. And that one was brought forth by myself and the members of the Gillis family, and it was a board-sponsored article, although the family, you know, came up with the idea, approached us about it, and ultimately paid for everything to take place. But that one wasn't, and you are right. I've seen other instances where residents put together something. So I think there's been both, but I think you raised a good question.
And I believe, and I stand to be corrected, but the request from some years ago to designate a sign at the corner of Adams Street and Church Street, I believe that was one that was
Lawrence and
brought by the board. I don't think that was a petition article either. So I think it certainly can go either way. There's no wrong or right. You know, if the board is inclined to support a particular article, they can certainly take it under their wing, so to speak, and direct us to prepare it in the alternative. If the board does not want to take that approach, then the residents can, you know, get the requisite 10 signatures and pursue it as a petition article.
No, I'm fine. If there's been, I'm fine to, in my opinion, to take it under our wing. I think this family's gone through enough, and they've suffered a tremendous loss, but I just wanted to make sure that we're looking at this, you know, from every angle, just to make sure from a procedural standpoint that we're not unintentionally setting a precedence that has never been done before. So I appreciate people correcting the record and making me see it from all viewpoints.
No, thank you for bringing it up, because I think it's a great question. We want to be crystal clear when we get back to Mr. Signer of Hathaway Road that, you know, what our intention is. We would hate to see the ball get dropped on what I believe, I'll just characterize it as a no-brainer. This is non-controversial. I think it will receive, you know, tremendous support at town meeting, including the members of this board. But I think you're right. We want to be crystal clear what we're offering to do for this gentleman or what we're expecting.
Right, and
So
then
thank you for raising
to that point is just roles and responsibilities, and just seeing that it's being written correctly, you know, and so I have no issue sponsoring it. I just want to make sure that, you know, for all the points I've already previously stated.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So a motion was made and seconded for discussion. I offered discussion. I'm prepared to take the vote.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Kyra to support the article for the April 30th town meeting. It's been seconded. Discussion. Call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell.
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Greg Bendel, yes. So it is unanimous. And Mr. Hull, I trust you'll be in contact with Mr. Signer
Yes.
about how we'll proceed. And we want to thank Mr. Signer for bringing this forward. A very fitting tribute. Thank you. Okay. This brings us to board to consider item number 10, approval of the 2022 licenses for alcohol beverages, automatic amusement, billiard rooms, Class 1 vehicle sales, Class 2 vehicle sales, common victualler, and entertainment. Licenses. Mr. Hall, we have quite a few.
So starting with the first category, all alcohol club, we have Fordham Associates Inc., DBA Aleppo Temple, 99 Fordham Road, and then second, 4982 Building Associates Inc., DBA Knights of Columbus, 112 Middlesex Ave.
So, before we go further, Mr. Hull, how do you want to, what's the pleasure of the board here? How do we want to take this up? Do we have, some options here? This is the first time some of the members will be doing this. I want to make sure everybody's comfortable with what we're about to vote on and how.
So I guess I would suggest taking them up by category. So in this case, all alcohol club, and then we can go, and then if the board is so inclined to vote on those, and then proceed to the next category, all alcohol package store, and then so on.
Okay, is there any objection to that method? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Hull has already outlined the all alcohol club licenses. Would anybody like to offer a motion?
Move for approval licenses as presented.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote by roll call. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Perry, yes.
Voting Michelle, yes.
And Greg Bendel, yes. It's unanimous. Thank you.
So next is the all-alcohol package store. The first one is Average LLC DBA Colonial Park Liquors, 35 Lowell Street, 211 Lowell Street, Corp DBA Eastgate Liquors, which is address 211J Lowell Street, ShopRite Liquors Inc. DBA Eli's Country Store, 381 Middlesex Ave, Super Target Liquor of Massachusetts DBA Target, 210 Ballardvale Street, NR Wilmington Inc. DBA Wilmington Plaza Wine and Spirit, 258 Main Street.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Perry, yes.
Voting Michelle, yes.
And Greg Bendel's yes. It's unanimous. Thank you.
The next category, all alcohol restaurant. Restaurant of Boston LLC DBA 99 Restaurant and Pub, number 3007599, 144 Lowell Street. Green Sauce Inc. DBA Casablanca Mexican Restaurant, 207 Main Street. A&C Stone Inc. DBA Golden Ginger Restaurant, 225 Main Street. Pacific Sunshine Inc. DBA Pacific Grove, 211E Lowell Street, also known as 217 Lowell Street. Ponchos Inc. DBA Ponchos Cantina, Unit 7, 206 Ballardvale Street. BGP Tavern LLC, DBA Red Heat Tavern, 300 Lowell Street. CNC Restaurant Group LLC, DBA Rocco's Restaurant, 193 Main Street. LLM Inc. DBA Tremezzo's, 2 Lowell Street.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Perry, yes.
Voting Michelle, yes.
Greg Bendel, yes. It's unanimous. Thank you.
Next category is automatic amusement devices. We have K1 Speed Inc., 40 Fordham Road, 21 devices, 12 renewals, and 9 new. And I would just note that the police chief has reviewed these and recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Ms. O'Connell, seconded by Mr. DePalma.
Very
Any
good.
discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Perry, yes.
Voting Michelle, yes.
And Greg Bendel's a yes. Thank you. It's unanimous.
Next category is Billiard Room, K1 Speed Inc., 40 Fordham Road, 4 tables.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Perry, yes.
Voting Michelle, yes.
And Greg Bendel's a yes. It's unanimous. Thank you.
Next category is Class 1 vehicle sales. Doobie Auto Group Inc., DBA Bill Doobie Hyundai, 271 Main Street. Semino Automotive Inc., DBA Cornerstone Automotive and Cornerstone Mitsubishi, 580 Main Street.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes.
Kevin Perry, yes.
Lil? Did we lose Lil? Lil, can you hear us okay?
Yep. Sorry.
No problem. Is that,
My earbuds is out, I'm sorry, I took over.
no problem?
Michelle, yes.
Thank you very much. And Greg Bendel's a yes. It's unanimous. Thank you.
Next category is Class 2 vehicle sales. Wilmington Shell Inc., DBA Advanced Auto Technologies, 779 Woburn Street. DJ Auto Sales, 127 Main Street. Forest Auto Repair, 600 Main Street. Heavy Equipment Connection Inc., 239 Andover Street. Imperial Auto LLC, 845 Woburn Street, Suite D. J&E Service Corp., 619 Rear Main Street, Triple Nickel Auto Body and Repair LLC, 555 Main Street, NEA Inc., DBA Z&S Gas and Service, 603 Main Street. I would note that we have B&L Enterprises, 880 Main Street, that is not seeking renewal.
Thank you for that. Is there a motion?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes?
Greg Bendel's a yes. It's unanimous. Jeff, we now have 42 common victual licenses to consider.
All right, I'll
You-
take a deep breath.
Yes.
All right, so we start with 99 Restaurant of Boston LLC, DBA 99 Restaurant and Pub, 30075, 144 Lowell Street. Anjam Corp., DBA AJ's Kitchen, 162 Lowell Street. Fordham Associates, Inc., DBA Aleppo Temple, 99 Fordham Road. Sale LLC, DBA As Good As It Gets Cafe, 35 Lowell Street. Masteron Corporation and LBK LLC, DBA Burger King, 280 Lowell Street. Green Sauce Inc., DBA Casablanca Restaurant, 207 Main Street. Hung Thai Inc., DBA China Walk, 329 Main Street. Krish Convenience Inc., DBA The Corner Store, 296 Shawshene Ave, Suite 1. Country Chef Restaurant, 139 Main Street. Adam Donuts Inc., DBA Duncan, 211 Lowell Street. DJQ Donuts, LLC, DBA Duncan, 66S Concord Street. Hannon Donuts, LLC, DBA Duncan, 357 Middlesex Ave. Jane Marie Donuts, LLC, DBA Duncan, 207 Ballardvale Street. C&C Donuts, Inc., DBA Duncan, 195 Main Street. Wilmington Donuts, Inc., DBA Duncan, 321 Main Street. A&C Stone, Inc., DBA Golden Ginger Restaurant, 225 Main Street. Heidi Burgers, LLC, DBA The Habit Burger Grill, 196 Ballardvale Street, Unit 1. Then we have Wilmington Heavenly Donuts, LLC, DBA Heavenly Donuts, 579 Main Street. DDK Baking, LLC, DBA Josie's Bakery, 2 Lowell Street, Unit 8. K1 Speed, Inc., 40 Fordham Road. 4982 Building Associates, Inc., DBA Knights of Columbus, 112 Middlesex Ave. Doodle Sack, LLC, DBA La Rosa's, Unit 211, 269 Main Street. Songhai, Inc., DBA Lynn Garden, 35 Lowell Street. T.H. McCoy Restaurant Group, LLC, DBA McDonald's Restaurant, 212 Main Street. Mona's Kitchen, 66U Concord Street. Nick's Pizza, Roast Beef and Subs, 331 Main Street. Pacific Sunshine, Inc., DBA Pacific Grove, 211E Lowell Street, also 217 Lowell Street. Ponchos, Inc., DBA Ponchos Cantina, Unit 7, 206 Ballardvale Street. KQ, Inc., DBA Peter's Pizza, Roast Beef and Seafood, 2 Lowell Street. Pizza Days, 206 Ballardvale Street. Verander, Inc., DBA Punjab Corner, Unit A, 433 Main Street. BJP Tavern, LLC, DBA Red Heat Tavern, 300 Lowell Street. St. Moses, Inc., DBA Rizzo's Roast Beef and Pizza, 3R Church Street, Units 1 and 2. C&C Restaurant Group, Inc., DBA Rocco's Restaurant, 193 Main Street. Charlie's 2 Corporation, DBA Samard's Super Beef, 279 Main Street. Starbucks Corporation, DBA Starbucks Coffee, number 11757, 253 Main Street. Watertown Enterprises, DBA Subway, 206 Ballardvale Street, Unit 2. CDC Diner, DBA Sunnyside Cafe, 2 Jefferson Road. Target Corporation, 210 Ballardvale Street. LLM Inc., DBA Tremezzo's, 2 Lowell Street. WF Pizza Company, LLC, DBA Tremezzo's Pizzeria, 296 Shawshene, should be Shawshene Ave. Gelev Enterprises, LLC, DBA Wilmington House of Pizza, 325 Main Street. Not seeking a renewal is PR Restaurant LLC, DBA Panera Bread, 298 Main Street.
I have a question before we...
Sure, Mr. DePalma.
I didn't hear Dunkin's, CNC Donuts, Inc., 195 Main Street.
Mr. Hall, was that omitted by accident?
Is that listed here? Yeah, okay, it is listed here. So CNC Donuts Inc., DBA Dunkin', 195 Main Street. Yeah, it is on the list.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good catch, Mr. DePalma. Anybody else? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Thank you. Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell.
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes?
Greg Bendel, yes. It's unanimous. And finally, Mr. Hall, we have 6 entertainment licenses.
Beginning with Green Sauce Inc., DBA Casablanca, 207 Main Street, Pacific Sunshine Inc., DBA Pacific Grove, 211E Lowell Street, also 217 Lowell Street. Ponchos Inc., DBA Ponchos Cantina, 206 Dale Street, Unit 7. BGP Tavern LLC, DBA Red Heat Tavern, 300 Lowell Street. C&C Restaurant Group Inc., DBA Rocco's Restaurant, 193 Main Street, and LLM Inc., DBA Tremezzo's, 2 Lowell Street.
Is there a motion? The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell.
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes?
Greg Bendel is a yes. It's unanimous. Thank you.
So just as a reminder, as we've done in the past number of years, at the conclusion of the meeting, before everyone leaves, Beverly has a very high efficiency system for signing off on the licenses, so that would be, we'll, I think we do that here or in the other office. Either way, we'll get everybody to sign.
We're in good hands. Nobody does it better. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to board to consider number 11, executing the Alcohol Beverages Control Commission 2022 Seasonal Population Increase Estimation Form.
Yes, this is really intended to, for communities like the Cape and other places where there's a seasonal fluctuation. Clearly, in our case, there is none. So the board would need to authorize and execute this document for the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell.
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes?
Greg Bendel's yes. It's unanimous. Thank you. And final board to consider item is issuing a Sunday entertainment license for K1 Speed Inc. at 40 Fordham Road. Mr. Hull.
Yes, this is, as noted, authorizing the K1 group to operate on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., and the board would need to authorize that.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just through you to the
Please.
chair. For something like that, is it, like a police chief or anybody have any sort of issue with that? Or is that just an extension of what they already have?
I don't believe that the chief has any issue. As far as I know, he's reviewed it and is okay with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell.
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Gary DePalma, yes?
And Greg Bendel's a yes. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And this is going around to be signed. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to announcements. Do any members have any announcements? Mr. Kyra.
Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Thanks, same to you, Mr. Kyra. Any other announcements?
I would just echo the same in terms of wishing everyone a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. and looking forward to seeing everyone and working with everyone in 2022.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday to everyone. Enjoy, stay safe, and we'll see you next year.
Sounds good. I would just like to obviously wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and to our town employees and to the residents, a very Merry Christmas, and great health going into 2022 for everybody. I also want to apologize and congratulate our new firefighters that are being sworn in tomorrow. Can't be there due to a commitment at work, but I want to congratulate them and wish them good health and success as well. Anything else for announcements? Hearing none, we'll move to new business. Is there any new business? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Hull, bring us through important dates, please.
Under important dates, December 15th, the Mass DOT has a public hearing on the Route 38 bridge. This is virtual. This is the bridge that runs over the MBTA tracks. It starts at 7 p.m. And there's information on the website if people are interested in participating. December 20th, the Town School Administration Building Committee meets, room 9, 6 p.m. December 24, town offices are closed and also closed on December 31st. January 3rd, first dose of COVID pediatric vaccination clinic. This is for ages 5 to 11 in boosters. This is at the middle school, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. January 3rd to the 14th, curbside collection of Christmas trees. January 5th is another town school administration building committee meeting, town hall, room 9, 6 p.m. Board of Selectmen meet on January 10th, town hall, room 9, 7 p.m. January 12th, the senior center building committee meeting, town hall, room 9, 6 p.m. January 17th, Martin Luther King Day, town offices are closed. January 24th, first dose COVID pediatric vaccination clinic, again ages 5 to 11, and the booster at the middle school, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. January 24th is another Board of Selectmen meeting, Town Hall, room 9, 7 p.m., and the town manager's FY23 budget presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hull. Only 2 items remain. First is our salute to service. Our salute to service tonight goes to Anthony J. Tramaki, otherwise known as Nino, to his friends and family, who served in the United States Marine Corps during Vietnam. And Mr. Tramaki was drafted into the Marines in February of 1967. He rose to the rank of corporal. During his time, he was awarded the National Defense Service Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal with 1 star, the Vietnam Campaign Medal with device, a Rifle Marksman's Badge, the Good Conduct Medal, and he was honorably discharged in 1969, but continued his service in the Marine Corps through 1972. Unfortunately, Nino passed away on November 30th at the age of 74, surrounded by his family here in Wilmington. And for those reasons and many more, we salute him for his service to our community and to our country. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn for the last time this year.
Thank you, Mr. DePalma. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Kyra. By roll call, we'll call for the vote. Ms. O'Connell?
Judy O'Connell, yes.
Garrett Palmer, yes.
Kevin Tyler, yes.
And Greg Bendel's a yes. Merry Christmas, everybody, and good night.